Hello. Thank you so much for that. I always look forward to people pronouncing my name. It's always a fun time for me. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about why SMART goals are only half smart. That's the title of my talk today. And before I get started, I have a serious question for the audience today. And I want you to think about it seriously. Who is a slave? Who is a slave? Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines a slave as a person who is excessively dependent upon or controlled by something. Today, we are dominated by a culture that's obsessed with the notion of being realistic. A culture that promotes security over freedom. For example, let's take a look at the areas of goal setting. Goals, they say, drives a man's life. Goals, they say, forces us to become. Now the question is, become what? Because the thing about goals is that we can become more or we can become less than we could be, depending on the kinds of goals that we set. The challenge is that we've learned primarily to set SMART goals, right? We hear goals specific, measurable, attainable, realistic goals, and time-bound goals. The challenge is that we are raising a generation that is learning to set too small of a goal. A generation that is lacking in vision. A generation that is conforming to the status quo without questioning ideals. And this brings me back to my first question. Who is a slave? A slave is a person who is excessively dependent upon or controlled by something. Now, Rollo May, in his book, Man's Search for Himself, he says that the opposite of courage in our society is not cowardness, it's conformity. Now, I can understand the left-brain thinking for setting SMART goals, right? However, SMART goals are only half smart. Such goals are good for milestones, but not for vision. What is vision? You might ask yourself, what is this word that, we're throwing our vision? Vision is the capacity to recognize potential in people and circumstances. Vision is seeing people and things not just for what they are, but for what they could be. It has been said, eyes that look are common. Eyes that look are common. But eyes that see are rare. Sight is a function of the eyes. But vision is a function of the heart. Now, I'm reminded by a quote by Marianne Williamson. It says, "Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people will not feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine." Think about it. Think about it for a second, right? Putting a man on the moon. Think about it, right? A plane in the air. I want you for a second to think about the magic that happens with wireless phone communication. Those were not SMART goals. It was not a SMART goal for Columbus to sail across the ocean to a world unknown. It was not a SMART goal for the Wright brothers to invent a flying machine built to carry humans. It certainly was not a SMART goal for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to believe in racial equality for African Americans and to march on Washington. But one thing is for sure. Today, we celebrate the manifestation of these visions. There was nothing attainable or realistic about those goals. But they did move the human race forward. You see, wisdom demands that you live within your means. It's a wise thing to do, live within your means. But vision demands that you dream above your means. Understand that the world only erects statues in honor of people with vision. People who set unrealistic goals driven by vision. Goals that move humanity forward. Sight is a function of the eyes. But vision is a function of the heart. Freedom, significance, fulfillment, and moving the human race forward takes much more than just smart goals. It takes vision. You know, I once heard Fela Durte say, it said, when destination is not clear, directions are not needed. Say what is needed is revelation. Revelation births vision. But you see, attaining vision starts with inspiration. I want you to understand something, that the universe doesn't play favorites. When inspiration comes, no matter how crazy it sounds, you want to listen and start moving towards it like a child in faith. You know, it's funny, I once heard Michael Jackson speak about his creative process, right, for his music, how he creates most of his songs. Now, I want you to understand something, that Michael Jackson doesn't read or write music at all. But it's interesting to note that the engineers and producers who worked on Michael Jackson's albums have confirmed that he was able to sing every note, every chord, the melody, everything, before it was ever written down on paper. During the dangerous case, the court case of 1994, speaking of how he came up with the song Billie Jean, he said, the lyrics, the strings, the chords, everything comes at the moment like a gift that is put right into your head. And that's how I hear it. He said, when I said, Billie Jean, it's not my love, I didn't think about it. It just came. It dropped on my lap. At once, I loved it. So I ran. I drove home fast. I got on the microphones. I put it down. And then I went into the studio. I got the musicians in. I gave them all their parts. And that's how that was created. Same thing with all the songs that I create. In 2005, Stanford commencement speech, Steve Jobs said, your time is limited. So don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living the result of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of other people's opinion drown out your own inner voice. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and the courage to follow your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Sight is a function of the eyes, but vision is a function of the heart. I believe that we're meant to live a life filled with vision greater than us, and walk towards that vision in faith, taking inspired actions day by day. Inspiration leads to intention, and not the other way around. You know, President Theodore Roosevelt once said, far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy nor suffer much, because they live in a great twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. The odds of you being born in this particular time, this particular place, and circumstance is about 1 in 400 trillion. You are special, and you are created to do great things. Well, it's pretty apparent, isn't it? The way to freedom, the way to fulfillment, it's not to set realistic and attainable goals. The way to freedom and fulfillment is to have a vision and have the courage to walk towards it in faith. It's not about what you get. It's never about what you get. It's about who you become. A large vision has the power to make you become more than you are. A large vision has the power to move humanity forward. Ask not what your country could do for you. Ask what you could do for your country. That was by John F. Kennedy. You know, people ask me all the time, how they could break from a life of conformity and live a life of freedom and fulfillment. To answer this, I tell them a story. There was a scientist who did a study on fleas, about half a dozen fleas, right? He placed these fleas in a glass canister for observation, and immediately he placed the lid on the glass canister, and the fleas did what fleas do best in times of crisis, right? They jumped. Now, I want you to understand something, that when fleas jump, it is no ordinary leap. These insects could shoot as high as 100 times their body length and horizontally up to 13 inches. Now, the fleas kept trying to jump out of the canister over and over and over again. But every time they would hit that head at the top of the canister. As they watched them jump, something became obvious. The fleas did continue to jump, but they no longer jumped high enough to get to the top of the canister. After about an hour, the scientist was able to take the lid off the canisters, and the fleas did continue to jump, but they never jumped out of the canister. The flea is one of the best jumpers of all known animals relative to his body size. They were born and designed to jump 13 inches, but now couldn't jump 4 inches. After they hit their head several times, they decided to still jump. They still will jump, but not as high. And since none of the other conditioned fleas were willing to try again to jump out, they all just remained trapped in their self-imposed limitation. Trapped in their self-imposed limitation. The amazing thing about the study was that as soon as the scientists introduced a new flea, a flea that knows that there is no limit to what it could do or how high it could jump, when the new flea got into the canister and jumped back out, the rest of the conditioned fleas, they saw that, and they all began to jump out. The way I see it, they got their vision back. You see, among other keys, one of the major keys is the power of your association. Your association will either cause you to remain a slave to conformity or support you to reach your vision. However, your association can only show you the door. The door to freedom, that's all they could do, just show you the door. You have to personally walk through it. What is freedom? What is freedom? Freedom is the right to choose, the right to create for oneself the alternatives of choice. Without the possibility of choice, a man is not a man, but a member, an instrument, a thing. That was by Archibald MacLeish. Make no small plans, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood, and probably themselves will not be realized. That's by Daniel Boerum. You know, I did not originate any of these philosophies. I simply discovered them for myself, right? Discovered them from great teachers and mentors. I learned them, and I have been applying them to my life. It has been my pleasure sharing that with you today. And in closing, I leave you with this. Your playing small does not serve the world. So set large goals. Goals that will make you stretch. Goals that will make you become more. More than you are. Goals that will lead from slavery to freedom. Goals that lead to fulfillment. You deserve it. God knows your family deserves it. The world needs it. Set the kind of goals that will let your light shine and give others the courage to do the same. Goals that have been birthed from vision. For it is this type of goals that have the power to stir a man's blood. It is this type of goals that move humanity forward. Thank you.